Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Los Angeles-based saxophonist and flutist Ron Cyger and double bassist, guitarist, and ukulele player Brent Butterworth. They are of the group known as Take2. They opened up about their much-anticipated debut album full of 8 originals and 1 standard that span multiple genres like straight-ahead jazz, pop, bossa, mambo, and the blues. Ron has been active in the LA jazz scene for years, and Brent is a well-known audio writer for publications like JazzTimes and Wirecutter. They make quality tunes together. Enjoy their story.
Gentlemen, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having us on.
We're happy to be here.
Well, it's an honor on my end. I love the album, and as I mentioned before this actually started rolling, I had a wonderful time listening to this with my son in the car, and I just, before we get into how you constructed this artistically, it's coming out during the tail end of a pandemic. There's chances to play this live, and I'm curious, how does this feel to have this come out at this particular time with that opportunity to promote it live?
We didn't even really think of that. You're way ahead of us. This was just, I mean, I think like a lot of pandemic era stuff, you know, Ron and I lost all of our gigs, and I'd always wanted to do an album, and I had kind of never really done it, and to me it was just a chance to finally do what I've always wanted to do, just because I was no longer practicing stuff for gigs. I had time to do it.
Yeah, the pandemic, this really is a pandemic album. Pandemic, the lockdown just changed so many lives, as you know. And so this album just gave us a chance to kind of stretch out and do something really creative rather than performing a set that was pre-made up for us, you might say.
Yeah, well, we perform, we perform the same 50 or 100 tunes that most jazz groups play, but this was a chance to really break out of that and do something different. And I don't know, Ron, why did we do this? It just sort of happened.
Yeah, it like many great, brilliant ideas, it just kind of just slowly evolves. One day, Brent and I actually had done a duet together, I think, didn't we? We did Fandango.
Yeah.
We thought, since we have this pandemic sitting around with really locking us down, this was at the point like 2 years ago, in fact, 2 years ago, that we really couldn't come in contact with many people at all, really, and you were still wiping down your fruits and vegetables when they were delivered to your house, things like that. Brent came up with this brilliant idea of, hey, why don't we do something but separate?
I did not. No, come on. It's been a while. So we did this thing, and Ron wanted to do like Ron did like a little Facebook video with slides, and so I thought,
yeah.
I can't. I'm a tech journalist by day, so I'm like, I can't have my name associated with a Facebook video with slides. So I thought I'll write a tune and I'll do a full-on video of it with Ron, and then I'll have something where I can show all my colleagues that yes, I can do a video. So we did that, and then then Ron said, well, can we do a video? And he wrote another tune. He's like, can we do a video of this tune? And it just kind of bounced around, and then Angela O'Neill, who's a singer and band leader in the LA area, whose band Ron plays in, gave us the idea of doing an album because she was starting a label. And so we said, oh, okay, that'll be easy. We've already got 4 tunes. And, a year later, we finally got it together.
Yeah, here you are. I speaking to somebody, I did a lot of interviews over this time. Pandemic began, like everybody else, we were all in that boat, like, what are we going to do? And I just really decided that I wanted to do more interviews than I ever did before. And I remember at one point somebody, actually out in San Francisco, I believe, said, there's going to be a very special place for a lot of these recordings that come out during this time. And I'm wondering how you guys feel about that, because there is a deluge of creativity that was kind of locked up in the homestead, and now it's coming out now. Do you think that might be the case with your release and others coming out now?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have seen I've seen lots of artists from Chris Potter right down to Ron Cyger, people just doing things completely in their home studios. Plus, technology has gotten to the point that really allows us to do it without any downside. We record as well in our basements as the Beatles recorded at Abbey Lane. It's wonderful.
Yeah, we just have to get the music to catch up, our music to catch up to the Beatles' music. We've got the recording.
We're getting
we're
there.
more than halfway. We're more than halfway there. Yeah.
Exactly.
The one thing about this pandemic is it provided us all an opportunity to kind of look within and, self-discovery, realizations. What did you discover about yourself that maybe you didn't realize before this pandemic that's only going to make you stronger as you get out and promote this and kind of get back out into the world a little bit more?
Well, for me, honestly, we were just guys who showed up and played jazz gigs wherever, we could. And now we're artists. We did an album and it's 8 originals and 1 cover tune, and which we completely reconceived. How much is that dog in the window? We completely reconfigured it from the normal. And now we're actual artists. We're not just people who show up for a jazz gig and play, all the things you are. So it's a different feeling, and it's very weird to you play jazz on a gig, and people applaud if they're paying attention or not or whatever. You get paid, and everything's great. But with this, it's like you're an artist. You put your stuff out in the world, and you see what happens.
Doing a project like this, everyone. A lot of musicians obviously do projects like this, but for Brent and I, especially for me, I think it really was a great learning and growing experience. I am really playing differently than 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, and it just was I hate to keep using the same word, but it really was a wonderful experience.
Speaking of a wonderful experience, you two obviously gel very well together and create music well. How did all of this happen? How did the union happen, and how is it maintained this long?
Ron got desperate for a bass player, so he called me. And literally, because everybody's desperate for a bass player, right? And I think I'd only been playing double bass for about 6 or 8 months when he called me. I played, I played electric bass and stuff before. And Ron invited me to play in his band, and we gigged for a few years, I guess. And then the pandemic kind of collapsed all that, and we just, Ron asked, like I said, Ron asked me to, he wanted to do a recording of this duet tune that he had, and we did that, and kind of figured out how to do that. And then we started doing some more of them, and I already had a multi-track recorder. Ron got a multi-track recorder. Then we stepped up to digital audio workstations, on the computer and everything. And we just kept amping it up. It's like my music room just grew from a little pile of recording equipment to this giant pile of stuff, which is actually pictured on the inside of the album with my dog sitting there. And yeah, it just kind of kept growing and growing. And I think our ambitions grew along with the project, because the first things we did, we just sort of banged out real fast, and then as we kept expanding our gear and our knowledge, we kept redoing things and reimagining things, and yeah, finally, I don't know how we ever finally stopped, but we finally did stop. I think we just got tired.
Yeah, when you reach the limit of about 60 minutes worth of music, I think you're about there. But Brent's being a little modest. Brent is one of the most an author is well-read. I don't know what a musician is. Are they well-listened? But Brent is probably one of the most well-listened people I know. He knows everything from acid rock through Miles's last album. It's just incredible, the encyclopedic knowledge he has. And then you put it on to the fact that he has a really wonderful musical sense and pretty good time. It lays down the foundation that starts to create this real beautiful musical tapestry that me as a saxophone player can really tap into. And the bottom line is, I just love playing with Brent. It's wonderful.
And also, my conceptions for tunes are fairly simple. I would come up with something. I'd come up with a tune. I'd write it out, put it on staff tape and everything, and lay it on a bass track and maybe a guitar track or ukulele track and stuff. And I'd send it to Ron, and it would come back 3 weeks later with like layered saxophones and flutes and all this stuff. I have no idea how to do all that stuff. So it really kind of worked out perfectly. We both kind of, he kind of I contributed sort of the basic rhythm tracks and all that stuff, and he sort of layered all the sophisticated stuff on top of that. So we both have our strengths. It was sort of perfect that we were able to do this. And also, with the pandemic, we had time. It's not like we said, hey, let's bang out an album in 3 weeks or a month. We took a year to do it. So, it was, I think it's a great thing. There's already a lot of good pandemic albums coming out.
Yeah.
It changed the lives of musicians in ways that are good and bad.
I think one of the things that I find unique is the ukulele. I think it just adds a different kind of timbre to sound. I think that's one of the things.
See, I told you.
It's a hip thing. I have a stepdaughter that's a big Billie Eilish fan, and she wanted a ukulele about a year ago. So
absolutely.
It's kind of one of those things. So what's life like in Los Angeles? Every time I think about Los Angeles, I've been there, and I always think about like it's like a Steven Spielberg film. Like you got this big wide pan, it comes down through these mountains, everything's perfect, the weather's perfect, everything's just it's like a Willy Wonka world. So being a musician there, what's it like to live in Los Angeles as a musician?
It takes a lot of traveling. LA is just completely spread out. Brent and I, even though, we get together on a regular basis and gig and socialize and things like that, we're still over an hour away from each other. LA is just weird in many ways. And by the way, today it's kind of raining and yucky outside. If you're like, unless of course you're from Seattle, in which case it's an ordinary day, I guess.
Yeah. No, I definitely need sunshine. So I always LA is always kind of a dreamscape for me.
Well, today is rainy and gloomy and all that, but that by far is not the norm. Yesterday was absolutely gorgeous. The transitions in spring and fall are just wonderful. They're wonderful, wonderful times to be in LA. All that. But going back, I was thinking about what you were saying about ukulele and all that, and I can just imagine someone listening to this interview and not having heard the music yet. What concepts or what conceptions they may have of the music with ukulele, with jazz music with a ukulele background. And all I got to say is you got to listen to it. It's every tune, I think, on this album is kind of a unique little universe unto itself. They're all different, but they all have a constant theme right through them. You can tell it's the same group. It's the same, not the same style per se, but the same thought process that kind of went into them.
Yeah, can I put a disclaimer on this right away? Okay, this is not like double bass, saxophone, and Tiny Tim, okay?
Exactly.
I don't know how to play normal ukulele. I only play jazz ukulele. I play like jazz chords and scales and all that kind of stuff. If you ask me how to play, a Hawaiian tune, I wouldn't have any idea. I don't even know the chords. So it's not like
That's awesome. So I will make one disclaimer on my end here, just from everything that's going on. I would blame today's weather on Will Smith. So I want to put that out there.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Any repercussions.
Man, yeah. So let's get into a little bit of why you enjoy being a musician so much. I know you had mentioned, Brent, that you're a tech journalist, and, what is it about being a musician that you look forward to every day that you love so much?
There's a great quote from Charles Lloyd, the famous sax player, and he said that improvising is like shooting arrows into infinity. And I like that quote because it's sort of like, you pick up the instrument and you can fall into the same patterns and stuff that you did, but if you push a little bit, every single day you can find something new. I mean, it's just 12 notes, but still you keep finding new things every single day. And it's also fun because you get I play double bass, which when you first pick up a double bass, it seems completely impossible to play. But just the sort of miracle of your brain and your hands slowly learning to play this sort of impossible instrument without any frets, or it just starts to work for reasons I don't understand. It's like I can go hit a B flat and it's pretty close to in tune, and I don't even have to look. And to me, it's like having magical powers.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of, that being a musician is like being a all-star track person. You have to constantly stay in practice, stay in shape. But like the marathon runner, you kind of, or at least I do, I kind of enter into a zen, you might say. I just really enjoy my practice sessions. And so that is wonderful. If you don't enjoy practicing, you won't enjoy being a musician at all. And then when I perform, most of the time you're performing things that you kind of know already, but that 10, 15, 20% of the time when things just become magical and the rhythm section, the bass, everyone's just clicking in together, and you know what the other person is doing. It's really awesome. It's really magical. For those times, it's, the hours you spend in the practice room are worth it.
So the deep in the mystique of everybody that hasn't heard this album, and to kind of demystify things a little bit, let's say you come to Kansas City, you're going to perform live at one of our venues, and you have to actually write up some kind of paragraph to entice those that come in to see you. How would you describe what you're going to do on stage, and why should somebody, with everything happening nightly in Kansas City, come to see you live?
Oh, boy. That's a tough one.
Before we go there, so do you have quite a nightlife in Kansas City?
Actually, it's pretty robust, yeah. If you go through the lineup of what we have nightly here, obviously the weekends ramp up, but throughout the week, it's going. We got a lot of things going on.
Wow, that's really good. I mean, it's one of the things that we're kind of missing a little bit in LA. Go ahead, Brent. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I would say that this is, for people who like jazz, this is jazz, but it's a little different. And you can hear all sorts of influences in it. You can hear pop and rock influences in it. I mean, it's not overt. It's not like we're playing, Smoke on the Water with a, jazz band. But there's all sorts of stuff, because Ron and I are both big, pop music fans. And so I think a lot of elements got woven in there, and yet there's also elements of bebop and elements of Miles Davis and who knows what. There's quotes from, I think I quoted a Violent Femmes tune somewhere here. And plus, it's just, I think anytime Ron and I perform, it's just always kind of lighthearted and freewheeling, because we kind of get each other, and we can both kind of roll with the punches that we throw each other.
Right. There's not a lot of laughter at a gig. You're doing something wrong. If you're not absolutely enjoying yourself, you're just not doing it right. And I think in our paragraph, we probably put something like that. If you for an absolutely wonderful time, just enjoying yourself. A glass of wine doesn't hurt, by the way, but if you're absolutely enjoying yourself, come on out.
Yeah, well, man, I would love to catch you cats live here. Thank you for opening up about the album. And truly, I had a wonderful time. I continue to have a wonderful time listening to this, and I'm looking forward to profiling on the show. So thank you. Good luck with everything, live shows and the album.
Well, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. We appreciate it, Joe. Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Los Angeles, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to both Ron and Brent for their time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.